I agree with you, Nick, on there, in that it was very, very annoying that 2 hours after a Grand Prix is finished, we don't know if the winner was actually the winner. And I would very much like to have seen an investigation made immediately, not 45 minutes after the race. But before I kind of give my opinion on it, I would like to kind of point out, I've seen a lot of references to Kimi Raikkonen in Baku, Felipe Massa in Brazil, and they are not comparable situations because at a lot of races you get race notes, race director's notes, which are specific to those Grand Prix, which did not apply to this one. So those kind of races where this has happened before, they're not comparable. There are a couple of kind of mitigating circumstances to this unique scenario, which kind of contributed to why Lewis was basically acquitted and let off with a slap on the wrist, and which were the confusion of the strategy that the team fully admitted to. They told him to come in, which was the wrong decision, and that played a part in it as well. But also the safety car was out, so everybody's running at a reduced speed anyway, and Lewis did not rejoin the track in a dangerous way. And those combined factors meant that a reprimand was a more of a appropriate penalty for the situation. Andre Lotterer gets the best single sector award of the season. He came into sector 3 in group qualifying 0.3 of a second down, and then by the time he gets to the timing line at the end of the lap, he was top. And that was a bit of a shock, and it got a round of applause from the media centre, and rightly so as well. That was a great lap. Of course, it didn't end up going entirely his way in Superpole, because that went the way of Felix Rosenqvist. What a lap. He was 0.6 of a second clear of the field, and it wasn't even a perfect lap. It could have been even quicker. So that was a really stonking lap. As to where the race was won and lost, I really do have to start with Rosenqvist, because he had it in the bag. You know, he was on pole by 0.6, storming away into the distance. There was a little bit of to and fro with the gap to Bird, but he looked pretty comfortable. Pit stop, perfect. Nothing wrong there. And then goes out with the suspension failure. And that's 25 points up out the window, when he stood to gain massively in the championship, with Verne struggling in the lower ends of the points. He was 9th at the end of lap 1.
In a way, the thing about Mercedes was that the work for 2014 was already in motion when Lewis arrived, whereas Renault don't seem to have anything at the moment. I mean, we know we've got the regulation changes for next year with the simpler front wings. Maybe Renault think they've got something up their sleeve, and they've shown that to Daniel, and that makes him think that they're going to be closer to the front next year, or certainly by the end of 2020. I mean, there's no point only getting to the front by the end of 2020, because then we've got massive regulation changes for the year after. It's a good point that Catman brings up, and one I was going to bring up sort of earlier, which is, you know, we got to remember that Renault are really only in their second season back properly in F1. When they came back in 2016, that was effectively just a year-old car that was painted in yellow and wasn't really yet Renault's work. And so they're basically 2 years down the development line. And now they've got a bit of extra cash. I think it's something like somewhere in the region of 5 mil since they quit Formula E to put into the Formula One program. So that extra resource is just going to go into the
5
development.
million? That'll pay for like the Cokes.
Well, that
The coffee cup's a serious step up.
But when we're dealing with a team that has admitted that it has a third of the resource and the infrastructure of a team like Mercedes or Ferrari, that's going to make a big difference.
Do you remember in Santiago when Sam Bird just stared at the back of Sebastian Buemi's car for half the race, because even though it looked like it was probably quicker, couldn't find a way past, because that Renault powertrain has got nice top-end speed. You know, even if Sam could get the acceleration out of the corners, it's either a way, you know, that motor is not good enough, you know, of the top end speed, or if they're losing too much time on the straight because they're changing gear, which the Techeetah does not because it's direct drive. Either way, you know, he would not be in an attacking position come the end of the straight. And I think it was very much a mirror of Santiago in that lead battle that we saw.
I think being teammates with Ricciardo will not hurt Hulkenberg in any way, because I think he'll either be very, very close to him or beat him on the right occasion. I think they'll actually be quite closely matched, but it'll finally be a really good way of working out just how good Nico Hulkenberg is, because we always talk about him as somebody who deserves a good car, but he's never really had a teammate that has properly pushed him, and that we know how good they are.
Perez.
So. Yeah, but
really?
But that was at a bad time.
I can't believe you're wrong in real life as well. I thought it was. I thought it was just a Skype artifact.
Would you put Perez on the same level as Daniel Ricciardo?
Yes.
No.
Really? Wow.
This Michelin has got such a narrow operating window, and it is confusing the hell out of the drivers. They don't understand how Antonio was suddenly able to pop it P2 in group qualifying, when he had shown no pace up until that point. And Daniel, for example, can't figure out why he looked so close to Lucas in free practice, and then all of a sudden he's half a second off his pace when they go into qualifying. This tyre is so unpredictable. It is so akin to what Michelin have got in MotoGP at the moment, or what Formula One had in 2012 when we had that crazy, crazy season of 7 different winners in the first 7 races. It provides such great racing, and I absolutely love it, because just no one knows what it can do next. And it's so easy to get out that window as well. You get a slight bit of over rotation on it, and then the surface overheats and you get no grip for your next corner as well.
I mean, by all rights, Sainz should be the one getting that seat. He was on loan to Renault by Red Bull with the promise that, if a seat comes up, you'll be the one to get it. But suddenly, since then, Nico Hulkenberg's rather spanked him a little bit at Renault. And also Pierre Gasly's come along and has done a really, really great job in the Toro Rosso, has impressed really well, and he's got good knowledge of that power unit now, which I think will be quite crucial for their first season with Red Bull, and that will come in handy. So I think it's going to be Gasly who ends up getting that seat, and Sainz will either end up at McLaren or shafted.
He's out in the cold, isn't he? Potentially.
He is a little bit, yeah. Because
Chris, hang on, Catman's just. What do you reckon? Why are you shaking your head?
Well, I think he will get this seat, but unfortunately, the only thing he's managed to do is beat Brendan Hartley. So I'm not entirely convinced that he's got all the right stuff so far. He's been very good in certain races, but I've not seen that wow factor just yet.
The thing Toro Rosso's had a very up and down season, and they don't quite get it right all the time. And you can tell when they've got it right. And
when
in those races,
powerful engine is when they get it right.
Basically. Yeah, I mean, you look at what he did in Hungary in the qualifying there. That was a really very impressive race as well. He wasn't a lap down by the end of the race, which in today's Formula One, where there is nearly 2 seconds between the top 3 teams and the rest of the field, is quite impressive.
I'm not at all surprised that Antonio slipped back. Overdrove it in Superpole. Can't blame him. He had nothing to lose at that point. So why not just go out there and try and set the best lap of your life and sneak a second row start, But then for him to have slipped back in the race as well, again, not surprised. The car is not supposed to be up that end of the field. Very different to, say, the Venturi. Mara Engel scoring his career best result with 4th, because that car actually has the potential to be up there. The Andretti does not. Even when you unlock its best, it cannot get up there. It's just carrying around all this unnecessary weight that it's never gonna be up there. It's such an intermediate car for them. Between where they were trying to design this excellent powertrain that was going to be the standard for everyone, that completely fell through, and for the season 5 car basically.
This is the sort of second time in a short period of time that the Red Bull Young Driver program has been quite exposed, because when they kicked out Daniil and they ended up having to put Gasly and Hartley in the car. Like, they put somebody in the car that they kicked off the program 6 or 7 years before that. That showed a massive flaw in the system. And right now, they've got nobody in the program that's ready to replace either Gasly or Hartley. There's all this talk about Dan Tickton, but he's not going to be able to get enough points to get the super license.
2 words: Lando Norris.
See, this is the thing. They already made a sort of vie for him, didn't they? But why on earth would McLaren? What sort of price range are they going to? James Key.
You're
exactly.
welcome.
It's funny, isn't it? There have been some real surprises this season. Like, we all thought Edams would get the first 1-2 in Formula E history. It turned out to be their customer. And you would have thought that Lucas would have been the one leading the first Audi 1-2, but it was Daniel. And you're right, he's a transformed driver. So he's got so much confidence now. I think being signed up by Audi as a factory driver has made him feel so secure and made him just believe in himself a lot more. He can do this. He can compete with this. He can compete for race wins. And you'll be amazed what confidence can do for you. And 9 times out of 10, when a driver is having a problem and they can't quite hit the nail on the head with it, it's a confidence issue.
I feel like there are kind of 3 points to this about this championship, because they've been so evenly matched. You kind of have to break it down to the car, the team, and the driver. And of the latter of those 3 points, you'd say that Lewis has been doing the better job. Because I would argue that the car is not as good across the season as the Ferrari, and yet he is the one leading the championship by quite some margin.
I'm looking to Summers because he's going to tell us for sure later. I don't want to say anything stupid.
In terms of the I feel like Seb has let his team down more than the team has let him down, and the team has let Lewis down more than Lewis has let him down.
There's no kind of rivalry there with Lucas. He very much plays the team game, whereas I didn't quite get that sense from Lucas, though. I felt like Lucas was a bit miffed that he wasn't the one leading the first Audi 1-2. Electric cars do not provide the same spectacle, do they? I've been to Goodwood. I've seen the V10s and the V8s all fly by me, and then the Renault Edams car comes out, and it is a little bit of a joke, really, to the audience, I think. But the complaint is always about the sound, isn't it? People don't even like the hybrid V6s, so they're never going to get on board with electric cars. And Formula E doesn't help the issue, because they almost admit that there's an issue, and there is, the sound is a problem, because they play loud dubstep music during their races. I know. But I can totally understand why a wider fan base and general audience don't want to get on board with this. And actually, one of the interesting points that somebody brought, I sort of reached out on social media and said, why don't you like electric racing? And one of the most interesting answers I got is as a result of humanizing racing cars, which we sort of tend to do, and we view the engine as the heart of a racing car. And by taking the engine away, you're taking away its soul. We're told that things will be very different for Formula E. They want to use Formula E as a platform to demonstrate the change that is going on. And I really want to believe it. I really want to believe that this is a change for the whole country, and that things are moving forward, and that Formula E is a good platform for them to do that, and to advertise that fact. And inside the venue, I'm sure it will be absolutely fine. It will probably be splendid, probably better than most races, because they'll be making an actual proper effort to seem like yes, this is the change that is happening. The Saudi authorities actually requested a female driver be taking part in the race, as well. And again, like you said, there's the line between actually doing something and looking like you're doing something. Yeah, I want to believe it's that they are actually doing something. Here's the thing, though, like, even if in the 6 or 7 months before this race takes place, you make some progress. Women can drive, and inside the venue, women are treated very respectfully and just the same as men, and LGBT people as well, although that seemed like an entirely different issue that hasn't even been approached yet.
Yeah.
But even then, civil rights don't just happen overnight. They are slow, meandering agonizing processes. Oh yeah, 100%. It was a very good strategic move from them. But they have to remember that they have to apply the same working environment that Toro Rosso have given them. So they can't suddenly come in and start saying, no, you can't do this, because that's why McLaren never got anywhere with Honda. They need to provide them that space just as much as Toro Rosso did. This makes no sense to me why you would go against the fuel supplier that your manufacturer recommends to you. I get it, there's probably a financial aspect into it. BP Castrol, it's a commercial decision. But do you know what's a really great commercial decision? Winning races. All right, and winning more races than what you would have been doing if you've been using the wrong fuel. Like McLaren's first year in the hybrid era was totally shock because they were losing a second a lap because they were using a different fuel to Mercedes and Force India.